なんだよやけって。
前みたいに酔った勢いで冷たい雨に打たれながら街をさまよったりとかさ。
ああ、そのくだりはもう終わった。
You know, even after this season, Haida is still over. Good morning, everyone. It's been a long time since I've gone to talk about Aggretsuko. Believe it or not, it was the first show I ever talked about on this channel. It's been a long road since then, but with the second season released not too long ago, I think it's time to go back and see how Season 2 fared with another bat's perspective. When it comes to Season 2, the story itself was a lot more intriguing. The main plot focused on Retsuko's control of her life. Well, the lack thereof. They showed this in different aspects throughout the season, from her workplace to her love life. To make it a little easier, I will refer to the amount of control she has to be her agency. Agency in this case is a character's control in a situation. For example, Retsuko has no agency at her job because of the lack of respect she gets from most of her peers. While at her karaoke sessions, she has agency where she can vent out her frustrations. They do a very good job showing what little agency she has throughout the season without it ever being obnoxious. It helped that they used the good mix of the older and newer characters as well to expose the lack of agency Retsuko has in a variety of ways. And speaking of other characters, the number of plots for the side characters increased. While it did focus heavily on Retsuko obviously, it had a good number of subplots that helped flesh out many characters. The ones I enjoyed the most was the plot involving Anai, one of the newer employees in the office that seems like a genuine nice guy, but isn't, well... Yeah, he's your average Twitter user. However, he grew more as Kabai was able to teach him the ropes and tie in the motherly aspect Retsuko desired. We even see more development with Kabai herself as we get a bit of backstory for her. We even see Gori and Washimi test each other out as we learn more about them. It gave a little bit of spotlight to a lot of the characters and it made the season much more enjoyable to watch. Continuing the character discussion, there were a handful of new folks that came along into the season. We start off with Retsuko's mother, who constantly tried to hook up Retsuko with a variety of dates of people who she believes is the perfect guy, even though she photoshopped the crap out of them. We already mentioned Anai's sensitive self. Finally, we have Tadano, Retsuko's latest crush who, at a glance, seems like a very go-with-the-flow type of guy and thinks about the world very differently from your average Joe. Each of these characters that were introduced had the same structure of Retsuko slowly getting an agency she didn't have at the beginning of each arc. At the same time, they all were executed very differently. It helped the story progress with each of these mini arcs involved with each character. Plus, the transition between each one is smooth. I also love the subtle seeds that were planted throughout that rockets the relatability with the show even more. However, I was hoping a couple of characters would play a larger role. Sadly, that ended up not being the case, especially with Haida. Don't get me wrong, I do think he is a solid character overall. It's just... I'm not really a fan of the road he's being put into. He doesn't really get out of that nervous and flustered state, and he seems to be stuck in the same arc. Heck, he even ended up in the same ending spot of his heartbreak walk for comedy purposes, which was cheap. It's a shame they didn't really move the needle to make him more interesting considering the amount of popularity he gets alone. At this rate, he may just end up being a less developed version of Oscar from Fishhooks. I really hope I'm wrong on that. Neither the animation nor music hasn't really changed much compared to Season 1, which isn't a bad thing since its focus isn't really to wow you in either aspect. I honestly did want it a bit more soundtrack-wise, because using the same soundtracks over and over again can take you out of it a tad. Although, we do get to hear a couple of songs from the side characters I enjoyed, especially Anai when we finally see him break out of his shell. Animation-wise, the only thing I can talk about is the extra expressions we get from the newer characters, more specifically Retsuko's mom and Anai. For Ritsuko's mom, the facial expression she gives out when she is in her nagging phase was fitting and hilarious, with the thick lips and spit flailing out of her mouth. While for Anai, his facial expression when he goes into Twitter rage is so intense and creepy, with his eyes looking like it's almost rolled back, and heavy dark circles are under his eyes. It continues the trend of each character having their own expressive look. Overall, I really enjoyed Season 2 much more than I did Season 1. While it does have a good amount of mood moments, I felt a lot more invested into the story. Many of the characters got a lot more development, and the new additions were entertaining in their own way. No matter who the character is, you can feel the relatability and some sympathy for each of them. This is definitely something I can recommend even more for those who enjoy the slice of life comedies. The second season feels a lot more refreshing, and it does give you a lot to root for on all sides. Shout out to these patrons. If you would like a shout out, support me on Patreon. If you would like to see more perspectives, click the video to the left. Click the subscribe and bell icon to get the latest from me. Until then, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.